Hey, what's up, guys? So I just picked up this fairly clean 98 V Star 650. I got it for a steal because it's not running at the moment, and I actually picked up like 3 bikes on Friday. This was one of them. But anywho, I'm gonna kind of take you through my troubleshooting on it, just so you can see how it's done. So a little bit of background on it. Obviously, I talked to the owner and he kind of filled me in on what's been going on. So it's basically been sitting for a little while, but the last thing he did to it was his mechanic supposedly had cleaned the carbs 2 or 3 times, and it just keeps having the same issue. I think he said he also replaced the fuel pump as well, and I would assume the fuel filter. So he seemed to think that it had something to do with junk from the gas tank, maybe getting, clogging up the filter, possibly the pump, or maybe even getting all the way to the carbs. I have a feeling that, anything that's big enough to clog would typically get blocked at the fuel filter, unless the fuel filter's completely non-existent or it just sucks, it has holes or something in it. But pretty rarely do big chunks get through all the way up to the carb, but who knows. I took a look inside the gas tank. I couldn't really see much, but the gas does smell pretty fresh, so it's not varnished. Also, I've owned a couple of these V Star 650s and other V Stars. I actually have one right there, so I do have a fair bit of experience with them, and I can tell you the fuel pumps are very common to go out, and like any carbureted bike, they need a periodic carb cleaning. But yeah, just looking in the gas tank, let me get my pen light here. So looking in the gas tank, I don't know if you guys can see that. It's a little yellow, but I don't see any chunks or anything floating around. And to be honest with you, it's pretty dang clean, especially compared to some of the older bikes I've worked on. So I'm not sure about his hypothesis of there being chunks in the gas tank, but it was worth checking. So next, I'm gonna go ahead and just do what I always do and crank it over and kind of see what we'll just kind of listen for stuff. On these bikes, when you turn the key on and you turn on the run switch, if there's no fuel, you should hear the fuel pump start clicking. And then what happens is once the fuel gets to adequate pressure, the fuel pump will stop clicking. It's got like a automatic shut off, pressure shut off. And so, see, so there's the fuel pump, and it clicked all the way until it basically, I think it's on like a timer or something. And if you notice, it never stopped clicking. So if we turn the key off, turn it on again, there it goes again. So what that tells me is that's a dry fuel pump. In other words, there's no fuel getting to that fuel pump. So already I've obviously got a fuel delivery issue from the tank to the fuel pump. So I'm gonna go ahead and start pulling stuff off and see if we can delve into that. And just so I can kind of give you guys an idea of what the fuel pump is supposed to sound like when it reaches pressure, this is my V Star 1100 that I just got running. This one has a brand new fuel pump. So, and actually I think I have the gas turned off, but you hear how much quieter that was? That's because it's not dry, it's actually got fuel flowing into it. So let's cycle it one more time. And there, see, it clicked a couple of times and then it stopped because it's reached its optimum pressure. So at that point, if we turn the key off and cycle it again, it doesn't even click, right? Because it's already up to pressure. So yeah, it's not normal for the fuel pump to be always clicking like that if it's working properly. Now, if the bike sits for a couple of days, it's going to lose fuel pressure, and yeah, it's going to have to prime itself again, but that's what it should act like. Okay, so I got the bike torn down here. I was able to locate the fuel pump, which is actually up under, kind of towards the front of where the gas tank is here. I'm used to them being down here, so I don't know if this is just a thing with the Classic. I guess I'm used to the V Star Custom, but actually that one's a Classic and that one's down on the bottom, so who knows? It could just be this one's a little bit older, but anywho, yeah, so I've rigged up a little setup here just to kind of see if the fuel pump's going to be pulling any fuel. I just put a funnel up here, filled it with some gas, and then I've got a line going down. I put in a new fuel filter that's clear so I can actually see the flow and everything, and then I'm going to keep that one so that if I hook up the gas tank, I can see if there's any debris getting stuck in there. But let's go ahead and cycle the fuel pump again, and we'll see what it does. Look at that. Okay, so it's pulling fuel. Let's cycle it again, see if it gets up to pressure. Yep, there it goes. That's a good sign. Cycle it one more time. Yeah, look at that. Still pulling fuel, so I'm gonna have to refill my little funnel here. Got gas leaking all over the place from, I'm sure, probably just a stuck float. You know what? Let me go ahead and grab my precision carburetor adjustment tool, also known as any long blunt object, and let's tap on those float balls, see if we can get those needles unstuck. So I'm just using a 3/8 6-inch extension and a hammer, and I'm going to kind of just gently tap on these float balls, because supposedly these were just rebuilt, so maybe if we're lucky we can get those needles to seat. And it could be that the gas that was in there was all varnished, and that tends to get real sticky, and that's usually when you end up having to pull the carbs and clean them. But sometimes you get some fresh gas in there, will kind of free things up. Are we holding pressure? No. No way. I think we might be holding fuel pressure. Hold on, let me refill this. Let me refill this funnel again. Yeah, we've got gas here. Oops, shoot, I got some on my little speaker. Those are pretty cool little speakers. I don't know if you noticed that. They're like little skeleton hands holding them, and I think they fit really well with the big ape hangers on this bike. All right. It seems to be holding fuel pressure, so let's crank it over and see what happens. No way. See if we can get a little choke here. That's promising. Well, for the 1 second or so that it ran, it sounded pretty healthy. Can't remember if there's a a trick if you have to have the key off for a few seconds. No, it's, as far as I can tell, it's holding fuel pressure, so we may just need a carb clean. And if that's the case, not bad. Whoops. Well, it doesn't seem to be pulling any more fuel. So I don't know if the needles got stuck in a closed position. Hopefully not. I'm going to go ahead and loosen up these drain screws for the float bowls and just let the gas drain out so we can maybe get some fresh stuff in there, because I'm sure the stuff that's in there is pretty well varnished. And I got to tell you, whoever put these carbs back together, they freaking torqued this thing down to like 50 foot-pounds. And I was barely able to get it cracked loose without stripping it. I don't know why they did that, but we've got gas coming out, and I'm gonna just let it go right onto the floor. I don't recommend that you do that if you care about gas being everywhere, but personally, I don't give a crap. And I'll clean it up later. And yeah, the gas that's coming out right now, it smells disgusting. It's straight wood varnish smell. So I'm gonna just drain all of that out. And then, yep, see, there it went. Ah, so we were holding fuel pressure, because I just saw it. I heard and I saw the pressure release from the fuel line there. So, well, that's good. That means our needles are at least working. And who knows, maybe we just need to get some fresh gas in those carbs. You know, fill those float bowls with fresh gas, get them under the jets, and maybe she'll fire off. I'm gonna have a big, nice puddle of gas here when I'm done. You know, I should probably be smart and put a little catch pan under there, but I usually end up tripping over it and the gas flies over everything anyway, so I'm just saving myself a step here. I do have an exhaust fan in the garage, so I'm not going to suffocate or anything like that. If anything, it'll just make me a little happier. All right. Let's take a smell test. It still smells pretty varnishy. So I'm going to probably go ahead and cycle that fuel pump again. And it should start clicking again since I let the gas out of the float bowls. Come on, what the hell? There we go. Yep, there it goes. Let's pull in some fresh gas into there. Ah, it's already starting to smell better. Yes. That's what we want. All right, we got fresh gas in the float bowls now. Confirmed by the smell test, and I'm gonna give this another shot. We'll give it a little bit of choke, and let me refill my little temporary gas tank here. We'll make sure we get some pressure built up. Okay. That sounds like it's holding pressure. Don't see any drips. All right, round two. fresh gas. All right, come on, baby. Come on. Let's try no choke. Starting to run out of juice here on the battery. Damn it. All right, well, we got it to run for another half a second or so. That's fine. You know, it just means we're gonna have to dig into the carbs a little bit. Now, fortunately, it looks like I can get these float bowls off without pulling the carbs, which is awesome. So I'm gonna do that. And a lot of times, if you've got carburetor issues and the bike won't even start, it means that your pilot jets are clogged. Now, I'll show you that once we get into them, but the pilot jet is essentially the tiniest little jet in there. It's the one that provides the bike fuel at idle. One thing I will note, be careful with these screws on the float bowls because sometimes they can be really tight. If you're using a regular Phillips screwdriver, make sure you put a lot of pressure on it, because what you don't want to do is strip it, which is what I did with this one. See, now I can't even turn it. So I'm gonna have to try and take a vice grip and wrestle that off of there. All right, so I decided to go ahead and just pull the carbs out because it was probably gonna take less time to do that than it was to sit there and fight with getting the jets out while it's on the bike. It was super easy. I just had to pull that air box off right there, and then there's a little boot that connects it down to the intake. And then the throttle cables were pretty easy to get off, and then there's one other hose. I think it's either a vent or a drain hose. It goes down here and it connects to the back of our air cleaner over here. So, oh, and then obviously the main fuel line there as well. So, but yeah, we've got them pulled off over here, so they should be a lot easier to work with, and we should be able to do this relatively quickly. Okay, so I'm not going to go into crazy detail on the carb rebuild itself. There's a ton of videos on that. This is a pretty basic carb setup. My advice would be to not separate them, especially if they were running good before. Just leave them together, pull the bowls off, clean them out. I've highlighted here on the top there, that's your needle valve, and then the bottom left is the pilot jet, and then the bottom right is the main jet. So pull all of those out. Be very careful not to strip those because they are a pretty soft metal. So use your proper size screwdrivers and wrenches and everything. Pull those out, spray your carb cleaner through them, blow them out with air, do whatever you need to do to make sure those are all clean, and throw it back together. If you do have a fuel mixture screw, I would just leave it where it's at. Like I said, if it was running good, there's no reason to mess with it. Now, if you flip the carbs over, on the top side of them, you'll have your throttle diaphragm with the spring assembly and everything. I like to pull those off when I'm blowing out the passageways because sometimes the carb cleaner can kind of damage the rubber in there. So you might want to consider doing that. And then once that's done, pretty much throw them back together and you should be good to go. Alright, I've got the carbs all cleaned out and reinstalled. Again, it was a pretty simple process. I just had to hook up the fuel lines. There's a couple of plugs right here, and then there's a tube that runs down under to the air intake over there, and the choke cable. But that's pretty much it. And as far as the carb clean, it was pretty basic process. Just disassembled everything. I soaked the jets in some of that chem dip right there, and then I just blew out all the orifices and sprayed them out with carb cleaner like you would with any other carb. So now I'm gonna go ahead and prime the fuel pump, see if we can get pressure going. And I actually already primed it, so it looks like it's holding fuel pressure, and I don't see any leaks. I haven't reinstalled the airbox yet So the carbs are just open, which is fine. That way, if I want to troubleshoot more, I can spray some ether in there or whatever you need to do. So I usually like to make sure it works before I put everything back on. Let's give it a shot. Nothing. And we've got the choke on full right now. I didn't see an air mixture, fuel mixture screw on these. I just thought of that, and so I don't know if it's electronically controlled, but there were a couple of plugs that I had to disconnect, and I plugged them back in. So I don't know how that's controlled, but I didn't see any screws for that. Oh, I think I might have left the throttle wide open. Hey! That's full choke. Okay, well, we're making progress. Let's try that again. Well, that's awesome. So it's running. I had to put my hand over the. I might have been wrong about the airbox thing because it wasn't really running right, and I just kind of gently put my hand over the inlets for the carbs, and then it was able to rev up. Because at first it almost sounded like it was missing a little bit. So maybe this one kind of does need the other components in there in order to run right. But that's great. So I'm going to put this back together and then see how she runs. All right, we got the air box back on so we can test the flow here. Fires right up. It's got a little bit of a burbling. I don't know what. If that's just because of the exhaust on it. It doesn't sound stock. It sounds like they either just took the baffles out or maybe it's... Yeah, I think they probably just took the baffles out, but yeah, you can see how much better it revs up with the airbox and everything in place. I did bump the idle up a little. I don't know if that's maybe just because it's cold, but yeah, right now we've got it barely choked. Yeah, and then there it just died. So seems to be running. We just need to do some fine tuning. There's my screwdriver. Gosh dang it, I was looking for that thing. All right, I've got the bike fully reassembled and it is running perfect. Let me give you a little preview here. So I just warmed it up. So it's already hot. I don't have the choke out. Look at that. I need to adjust this throttle cable. There's a lot of free play, but other than that, man, again, it's got those baffles removed, but heck, it sounds pretty good if you ask me, so I'm not complaining. Well, let's take this puppy out on the road where you can really appreciate it. hangers definitely take a little getting used to, but gosh, they sure do look cool, and they feel awesome when you're riding it. You can just feel the look of the bike, if that makes any sense. I know it's only a 650, but just the character of this thing is incredible. It's such a fun bike to ride. I had a blast riding it. I'm gonna get it cleaned up here and then probably put it away, but this one's finished as far as I'm concerned. So thanks a lot, guys, for watching. Give me a like if you liked it, and we'll see you on the next one.